Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of the Burning Question podcast here on Fantasy Football Scout. We have the whole crew together. Tom and Andy are both here. We won't dwell on anything too much. We'll dive straight in. First of all, Tom, while Andy's taking a sip, how are you doing, Tom?
I'm well. Yep, all good, thank you. Better after a Chelsea win, always. But it was a bit of a rubbish game week though. We'll get into that. But how are you, Harry?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Chelsea win finally after 5 games without a win in the Prem, and an all right game week for me. So yeah, good, thank you. Andy, how are we doing?
Not good. FPL season needs to come to an end. The new season needs to come, and I despise Jackson. I despise Chelsea, and I'm ready to bring the fire this game week. And all jokes aside, it's been a rough few game weeks, but hopefully we can bounce back this game week.
Yeah, exactly. Before we came on, we were having a little bit of a discussion about Jackson and whether he's a good footballer or not. Tom and I are still in the camp that he is a good footballer, and Andy is not pleased, particularly because he is in his FPL team. He is also in Tom's team. Tom, I will put your score up first on screen. For those listening, he had Raya in goal, Van Dijk, Munoz, Gabriel, Salah captain, Palmer, Gordon, Ahmad, Wood, Jackson, Isak, and 42 points total. Talk us through it.
Yeah, I did João Pedro to Wood last week for the deadline, so that obviously sort of saved my game week. Goal and an assist for Wood, despite ill-informed Twitter accounts having a pop at Chris Wood. That was an assist. Because it's hit him, that's unarguable. Unfortunate, yes, but for non-owners. But yeah, it was nice to have Chris Wood in my team for once. But yeah, that was about it. Munoz clean sheet was kind of him or Castagna. They both got the same in the end. But yeah, the captaincy was a bit of a roller coaster because I was all set for Palmer, and then I just sort of thought the week before I had a good rise, 200k. Thanks to Ahmad's hat-trick. So I was like, this could just be ripped apart by Salah if I don't do it. And with Palmer a doubt, I just thought, what happens if Palmer comes on for a point? I'll feel like really crap. So that was it. And then obviously when Palmer started, I was thinking, I made a big mistake. And then Palmer, he didn't really look that fit, to be honest.
There was a moment he went down in the first half, and I thought he'd done his ankle again. And he was down for a while, but he did get up. But it does feel like it's a little bit of something that wasn't fully fine coming into that game on Monday night, as he was a doubt. We haven't actually recorded since that Manchester United game. Ahmad hat-trick for us. I know.
What a player.
At 80 minutes, 10 minutes ago of the game week that was stretched across Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then suddenly Ahmad saving our game weeks.
Yeah, that was amazing. That he took me from about 1 million to 650k. That 20 points. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, that's about it. Pretty disappointing. Newcastle disappointing. Jackson, I know we'll talk about him. I have already sold him. For Gakpo. Seems like an easy move. I think Jackson is just a confidence thing. Like, he's obviously not. His numbers have gone off the boil a little bit. On the flip side, I think he's been quite unlucky. He hit the post a couple of times against Bournemouth. I think he forced a few good saves, and they did miss a sitter on his left foot, but he doesn't really have a left foot regardless.
I think the game against Wolves
wasn't his best game.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think the other games you can say he's been missing chances, but the game against Wolves, he didn't really have any actually.
It was a weird one. Like, it was just our defenders scoring really, and not a lot else.
We didn't create an awful lot of chances in that game, and Jackson's normally it's like, it's frustrating because he missed chances. He just didn't get any in that game, which I thought was interesting. You also Van Dijk over Trent at the moment, and we will talk about it. It is a big question for people who don't have Trent about whether you move sideways from Van Dijk or Konate to Trent. Any early thoughts on whether you do that?
I'm not going to do it just because I don't know. I think about this every week, and it's like, will he outscore Trent? Will Trent outscore him by 4 points over like the next 10 weeks? If you put it like that, it's an easy move, isn't it? But I'm probably not going to do it. Just hoping Van Dijk pops a bullet header in at some point.
I feel like Van Dijk hasn't scored in ages.
I think it's one this season.
Yeah.
back. Yeah, he scored one. He should have scored against Man United, if you remember. He missed in the last minute. But yeah. And then, just before we pass to Andy, a shout out to Chalobah. I think he's great. And
nice to have him back.
4.3, he's going to be in a few FPL teams at the end of the season. Yeah. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it does sound like Fofana's going to be out for a while. And as a Chelsea fan, it was very nice to see him back on Monday night in Chelsea shirts. Andy, we'll come to you.
I mean, really not much to add. Very lackluster game. I don't think anybody really shot up the ranks unless you had a couple differentials and made some wild decisions like captaining Wood.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. I think my priority right now is what to do with Jackson and on the market for a striker. I don't think I want to go to Chris Wood. I want to take on that battle. So that's where I'm at. And I think one disappointing thing was I was also on the Captain Palmer camp and chickened out at the last minute, by the way. But Sarr coming off so early was very disappointing because hopefully he's good for minutes the next game week. But I think he was coming off of injury news a little bit. So let's see how his status is.
Meant to have was a doubt going into the game because of a hamstring issue, which is probably not something they wanted to push, especially when the game looked a little bit more comfortable. It feels like he's been one of the big disappointments. Like his data's been so good, and if you actually watch their games, he's been really, really good for them. Just the returns have not quite been there. But yes, the other thing, and I have it as well, is Newcastle. I've got a double up on Newcastle in Gordon and Isak, and that game just started the game week off on a completely wrong foot for a lot of us. I mean, if you had Lewis Hall, he got 4. But then loads of the other defenders at that price actually ended up doing better than him. Gordon, of course, blanking. Isak blanking as well. That game Bournemouth were incredible. Like, it's one of the best away performances at St. James's Park I think I've ever seen. So we'll talk about Bournemouth a little bit in this video. Maybe not for this week, but definitely one to keep an eye on over the next couple of weeks. If you had Cliver, if you got Semenyo, you were incredibly unlucky not to get more from that game. Cliver versus Semenyo is a big debate, but it just started the whole week with 2 blanks basically, and Hall getting an assist, and I was just like, oh, here we go. We're fighting uphill now because Gordon's one of those players that if he scores, he does a lot for you. So, yeah, was a real shame to see both of those. I got 53 this week. Captain on Salah. I brought Chris Wood last week, so him in, Munoz, Trent, and then Bruno Fernandes basically being the difference maker for me. He's only about 15% owned. How long I end up keeping Bruno for, I don't quite know. He may well leave this week, and he may well stay until game week 33. So there's a lot of options for him. But yeah, it's weird. Man United have been very poor, but I've had 4 goals from them in 2 weeks, and it's basically completely changed the lookout. Like, I probably would have had a flat arrow last week and a red arrow this week, and I've ended up with 2 greens because of them, despite how bad they've been. But Andy, you said you wanted to talk forwards, and that is exactly where we're going to start. So what we're going to have on screen is just a screenshot from the Fantasy Football Scout members area, looking at forwards ranked by XGI per 90 so far this season. Haaland is at the top, but not very much above Alexander Isak, who we all own. You've got Watkins in 3rd. You've sadly got Jackson in 4th, who is joint with Johan Wissa, who is one I'm sure we will talk about. You then have Gakpo, Mateta, Welbeck, Cunha, Chris Wood quite low down, and then a few others, which I'm sure we'll talk about in today. João Pedro, 0.42, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, 0.39, Darwin Núñez, 0.39, and Iliman Ndiaye, 0.17. To start off by talking about forwards to sell, I think the big one this week is going to be Jackson. Tom, you've already sold him, and Andy, it sounds like you're going to do the same. Tom, was there any world where you'd have kept him, or was it an easy sell? If Liverpool didn't have a double in 24, would you consider keeping him?
If Liverpool hadn't have had a double in 24, I probably would have kept him until the West Ham at home game and sorted something else out. Maybe got Trent or something like that.
Yeah.
Or also just build a transfer, because I'm very bad at rolling transfers. I don't think I've rolled a transfer for about 12 weeks. But yeah, I probably would have kept him maybe, but it's just like, this is nothing against him as a footballer. Like, if you want to have that debate, that's fine. But it's just like once you take out the Chelsea bias, it's a pretty easy transfer.
Yeah.
Bringing in a double game weeker who's just, although I did make the move on Monday before the price drop, but now we know that Gakpo's been rested.
Bet you were happy to see him not in the squad or not in the starting 11.
Yeah, that was good. That was nice to see. But yeah, it seems like an easy move. It's 4 games compared to 3. It's better fixtures. Jackson against City this week. It seems pretty easy. And then did I consider anyone else? Not really, to be honest. Calvert-Lewin briefly, but that's it.
Andy, you haven't sold him yet, so I suppose you're slightly more in the I can pick a forward that I want to go to. I imagine he's a definite sell in your head based off what you've said. Is it obvious if you have a Liverpool spot that you should buy Gakpo, or is there others that take your fancy as well?
I mean, first of all, if you take out the Chelsea bias, we must admit that he's not a good striker. Like,
no, we don't need this.
Okay, fine. Right? I'm not gonna.
I think the fact you bought him for the blanks has sort of coloured your viewpoint slightly. Like, I think
my
if you'd had him from the start of the season, you might think of him a bit more favourably, I think.
I mean, at what point do we have to admit that racking up XG is it doesn't mean much if you're not going to finish, you know? And it's not. I'm not basing this off of one game week, Tom. Like owning him the past 5-6 game weeks have been a horrific experience because yes, he could have hauled. Yes, he could have got like brace. He could have got a hat trick or whatever, but he's just not converting. So I mean, I'll just leave it there.
I mean, yeah, that's completely fair. But if you'd owned him for the 6 before that, you'd have got loads of points. So it's kind of
and the polar opposite.
That's unfortunate.
The polar opposite is like someone like Wood who's actually overperforming his XG. But I mean, just take the XG argument aside. He's just a better finisher. And even Mateta, if you watch this over the weekend, he was pretty non-existent until his first goal. And when he got his first chance, he converted the goal, right? So that's all it is. Like, I'm not even asking for this guy to have ridiculous XG and score all of them. He's got to be able to score 1 out of 18 big chances he gets, you know? So anyways, my frustration is there.
I mean, I think none of us are going to disagree that he should have scored more goals over the past 6 weeks. Like, none of us are going to sit here and say he shouldn't have scored more goals than he has.
He's had a bad run. He's had a bad run for sure.
Whether he's not been a good FPL pick over those times in hindsight, whether that means he's a bad striker as a whole or not is a different debate. But I completely get from a FPL point of view, it's been a bad own. I jumped off a couple of weeks ago. I didn't enjoy owning him while I owned him. And now it's where to go. It sounds like there's virtually no one owning Jackson who's going to keep him. It's just, is Gakpo the obvious one for you, Andy?
I mean, I think so, right? I think as someone that is trying to chase a little bit and looking for maximizing this double in 24, for me, it just makes... I mean, we talked about Wissa I think last week or maybe the week before, and I think Wissa is very attractive as well. I think Watkins has a very decent stretch of, let's say, 3 game weeks. I think his price point's a little expensive for me, but other than that, it's Chris Wood. Other than that, it's DCL. Other than that, it's Nunes. So where else can you go? I mean, it's Mateta or Gakpo for me at this moment in time.
Yeah, I think Vissa's is worth a shout. If I put up the fixture ticker, the Fantasy Football Scout ticker for the next 6 weeks, I've slightly redesigned it for some of my stuff, but it's taken all the data from their website. Liverpool are top over the next 6. Everton are second, of course, because they have the double. They naturally are at the top of a lot of fixture tickers. The next ones after that, you've got Crystal Palace and you've got Brentford over the next 6, right? So Mateta is obviously one that people are going to buy. He's just scored a brace. He plays Brentford away, Man United at home, Everton away in the next 3. It's a nice run. But I agree, Brentford as well are starting to enter a pretty nice vein of form. I think it's clear that I'd buy Gakpo over Mateta. I'd buy Gakpo over Wissa. I think what's quite an interesting debate is where Calvert-Lewin falls into compared to Mateta and compared to Wissa. Because, of course, Calvert-Lewin has got the double. Some people think it's Calvert-Lewin. He scored 1 in 16. If he hadn't have scored, no one would be buying him. Completely fair point of view. Some people say, well, it's a double. It's worth a punt for 2 weeks and then you can move off him. But then you can look at it and think, what are the chances that Mateta and Wissa just outscore Calvert-Lewin over the next couple of weeks? Probably quite high. So I think Gakpo is clear. But if you've got a João Pedro, for example, he was quite low down in that table. their fixtures are okay over the next 6. They're not the best. It's maybe if you're going and you don't have the Liverpool spot or the money for Gakpo, where would you go next, Andy?
In terms of striker?
Yeah, still in terms of striker. Would you go to Calvert-Lewin as a punt for 2 or 3 weeks, or even hold him until the blank? Or would you just go, I'm not going to go Everton, and I'm not going to go, okay. I'm going to go Mateta or Wissa?
Right. I think the sensible play is to go Mateta or Wissa. But knowing myself as someone that likes to chase during double game weeks, I would consider DCL quite a bit. And I think you guys both would agree that we're not convinced by DCL at all. It's his first goal in, I believe, 15 Premier League games.
Yeah.
And, he could easily blank the next 4 or 5 game weeks. The one thing I would say that's going for DCL is that he could be your sort of 8th attacker, 7th or 8th attacker. So there's definitely opportunities to bench him down the line. So you could just think of him as your João Pedro replacement, for example. So that's my 2 cents on it. I would definitely consider Mateta or Wissa as much as I would consider DCL. But Gakpo is very attractive just because he's playing for Liverpool.
Tom, do you have a preference between DCL and Ndiaye if you were going Everton?
Having watched that game legally on Saturday, I would say DCL looked...
Why legally?
Well, because it was at 3:00, so...
Oh, okay.
But
so
yeah...
No,
you can't watch it.
Everton were Sunday.
Oh, I was it. Yeah, but Sky. It wasn't on TV, was it?
Yeah, it was.
Oh, it was. Right, my bad. Sorry. Yeah, ignore that. So Everton, having watched that game, I think Calvert-Lewin stood out to me more, to be honest. And Ndiaye was more of a he scored a wonder goal, but Calvert-Lewin was getting on the end of crosses, and he does have the penalties, doesn't he?
Yep, Calvert-Lewin will be on pens. I don't imagine it's changed.
Yeah, so I think, and that goal, to score that goal after not scoring for 16 weeks, that was pretty impressive. That was the finish of a confident striker.
Some
might say like Jackson in the early season.
Data is much better as well, 0.39 for Calvert-Lewin versus 0.17 XGI for Ndiaye. Ndiaye is a more exciting pick, but Calvert-Lewin does have historical as an FPL asset when he's finishing chances. But I do think the debate of do you go Wissa or do you go Calvert-Lewin is really close. I'm not certain that one of those fixtures is a Merseyside derby. He's got Liverpool. And then in the game weeks afterwards, when you look at the fixtures, if you go Calvert-Lewin, you can bench him, but do you really want to be benching? The strikers are so valuable at the moment. When Brentford go West Ham away, Leicester away, Everton at home, Villa at home, is Calvert-Lewin just being benched for those really worth it? I can understand it if you've got enough transfers to go Calvert-Lewin and then jump off, but the thought of going Calvert-Lewin and just holding him for 5 weeks just to play him in the blank, I don't particularly love. So I think I'm with you, Andy. I would go elsewhere, but if you've got the luxury of transfers, I don't mind a Calvert-Lewin punt for the double and then sell him. I don't love the idea of going Calvert-Lewin and just keeping him on the bench.
Yeah, agree. So I think just to sort of summarize that without fence sitting, I think that if you have maybe 3, 4, 5 transfers in your hand, go for DCL and then hop off of him.
Yep.
But if you're in my situation with 1 or 2 transfers and every transfer is precious, I do think that Mateta is very attractive. I also think Wissa is very attractive.
Yeah.
And a very solid, 28 up to 28 hold. So that would be my decision there.
I mean,
what if you had João Pedro now?
Yeah. I've got him. I've considered it because I've considered trying to get money, and we'll talk about it in my team, to go up to Gakpo. And if I can't afford it, I'm like, do I go João Pedro to Calvert-Lewin? And I can't make my mind up on whether that's a good transfer or not. Now, I get the double. I'd be benching Ahmad at home to Palace if I bought Calvert-Lewin.
For 24.
Yeah. Is Calvert-Lewin that much better? Potentially. Is it worth a transfer? Could I just go Wissa? If I could find the way to go to Wissa, I think I would just do that. I'm just not sure I'd go to Calvert-Lewin for this double. But that being said, once it's in front of me, I might change my mind. But the sensible part of me says I wouldn't do DCL in for him unless I didn't have the money to go to Wissa. If you don't have any money, then it's fine.
How about Wissa versus Mateta?
So I was about to go into that. I mean, Mateta, it's a long way away, right? But Mateta predicted to blank in 29. So you've got to take into account that you've probably got an extra transfer if you go Mateta. So that's one thing further down the line, that if I was short on transfers now, like if I only had 1 or 2 transfers, I would just go Wissa, because I don't think it's that much in it. When I've put up on screen now is the attack and defense data so far this season and ranked over the past 6. They're actually right next to each other, Brentford and Crystal Palace. Mateta has the benefit of penalties, but I would say Wissa is playing for a team that I expect to score more goals than I do Palace to.
Should we mention the transfer rumours about Wissa?
What, for Wissa? Yeah, he's also linked to... So I think I said this in my video this morning. If I was buying Wissa, I wouldn't buy him for this week, which is a shame. But I would wait until 24. Because what happens if Forest bid more for him? Because Forest have bid 22 million for him, which is pretty low, I would say. But I wouldn't buy him now until 24, just to make sure that he doesn't leave.
And that works because João Pedro has Everton.
Well, exactly. João Pedro for Everton at home, and then potentially Wissa next week for Spurs at home is an absolutely fine switch, whilst João Pedro goes away to Forest. Cunha also being linked to Arsenal as well. There is things in the transfer window which could change stuff in FPL.
Duran, West Ham, bidding 57 mil for Duran as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like the Cunha scenes, like that, he was furious on the pitch, and the manager's quotes is really interesting. If he stays, it's going to be an interesting way that they manage that between that. But yeah, I prefer Wissa, but if I was buying this week, I probably would go Mateta, just because the fixture's better in this week. He's on pens, and I don't want Wissa moving and it causing me a problem. But if you've got João Pedro, you're presumably not doing that this week.
It's just that Leicester at home game for Calvert-Lewin. Just looks really good. Double.
Yeah, the fixture looks good. The player, let's remember who you're buying, you know?
Yeah. The other thing that I noticed when he scored in that game is he still only came away with 5 points. He got booked. Yeah. There was no bonus or anything. Like, if he'd have come away, you know, with a 9-pointer like strikers do, like Calvert-Lewin has done, then I'd be more tempted. I just looked at it. I was like, oh, he scored. Oh, he still only got 5 points from his goal. Like that, it's because there were so many other goals in the game and a lot of forwards scored. But yeah, I think I would, unless you've got luxury transfers and you don't have money to go up very much, I don't mind the Calvert-Lewin punt, but I think the sensible thing is no Everton attack.
I agree.
But it's a double, and it's what we do. That's what we do.
We're going to talk about Idrissa Gueye, 2 assists, or?
No, we're not. I mean, we can.
The CDM coming in clutch.
Yeah. So what we've got up on screen now is the Fantasy Football Scout predicted points for the next 3 game weeks for both Everton and Liverpool. One to keep an eye on for Everton is McNeil. If he does end up being back, he's actually predicted to score more points in the double than any Everton player. So he's currently not looking like he will be back and available. But if he is, he's one to keep hold of. Is an Everton defender needed for the double? And that includes Pickford. Because if you've got a David Raya, for example, and you're looking at Raya to Pickford because you can't go Alisson, or you're looking at Mykolenko or Tarkowski, how needed do you think one of these is, Andy?
I mean, I brought in Pickford like 4 or 5 game weeks ago, so I'm already doubled up on Mykolenko and Pickford, and I mean, it hasn't been a good experience at all. Like,
I heard you on off the bench not being particularly pleased by your double Everton defense.
Yeah, definitely not pleased with double Everton defense going into this game week with sorry, who are they playing? It's Liverpool.
Who have they got this week? Oh, Brighton away.
Okay, maybe Leicester's okay. Brighton doesn't sound so good. So I don't know. I don't think it's a necessity. Maybe you're banking on that Leicester game as an opportunity to hopefully get a clean sheet. And but it's not like any of us have confidence that they're going to keep a clean sheet against Liverpool, right? So yeah, I don't think it's like a priority. So maybe if you're in the luxury position of having 3 or 4 or 5 transfers, I mean, maybe, but it's a goalkeeper transfer. So do you really want Pickford for the long run? Question mark.
Yeah. That's it. I think the big one that people are looking at is Raya to Pickford.
Yeah.
And I know Arsenal defensively have been poor, but I just look at it and I'm like, I'm just not sure that's worth a transfer. You are banking on Leicester at home.
But I mean, let's argue for that move is that Raya has 1 clean sheet in the last 10 game weeks, I believe.
Yeah.
And his price point is 5.5. He's not worth his price point at all.
Yeah.
And yeah. I mean, I'm sure Arsenal will get more clean sheets than Pickford moving forward. But you're getting an extra fixture in Leicester. And, 5.0 is a little bit pricey, but I think he can match or come at least close to what Raya is going to do after Gameweek 24. So,
Yeah.
if you're in a position where you have 3 or 4 transfers, it's not a bad move. As I'm talking about it and thinking about it, I don't think it's a terrible move.
Tom, how do you feel on Everton defence? Pickford is the second highest, and if you take McNeil out, Pickford is the highest predicted point scorer in the double with 6.7.
Yeah, I mean, as the move Raya to Pickford, I think I'm going to do it next week just because I think it gives me 0.5 to play with. You get that Leicester fixture, which is really good when Arsenal go to play City. So that's like, you couldn't really ask for a better like hop on, hop off point. And because I don't want a free hit 29, it just seems a smart move, to be honest. So I think that's fine. Would I buy any other defenders? Maybe. Looking at my defense that week in 24 is quite like Munoz is away at United. Gabriel has City. Fulham at Newcastle. Brighton, Dunk has Forest. There's not actually that many like good fixtures for your defenders. So if you're not looking to free hit in 29, you get Leicester at home, then you get West Ham at home in 29. I think it's pretty decent to buy Mykolenko. You said last week they were being linked with left back, so maybe you try and get a different defender.
I mean, it doesn't look like anything's happening at Everton regardless. I mean, no one's buying this week, I would say, for away to Brighton.
Tarkowski at 4.8. That's quite good. 1% owned. That's the one where you're going to get a 15 pointer if you want to take a risk.
If I asked you which Everton defender you think's most likely to get a 15 pointer, I imagine you'd both say Tarkowski.
Yeah.
Goal.
I'd be tempted. I'd be tempted by that,
I do think. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's not much to choose from.
He scores regularly.
Yeah. Once every 18 years.
I say that he hasn't actually scored this season. It's like so he's due. There you go. He's due.
As the FPL Wire are actually saying in the chat, I think it's quite interesting. They have sort of changed to a back 5, but it's a back 5 when they defend and like a back 4 still when they attack, with Lindstrom sort of filling in as a right wing back. It's not bad for Mykolenko, but it also isn't impossible that like Ashley Young goes out there or something. I still think Mykolenko might just be the one because he's 4.3, right? And you can just bench him. Like for me, as you say, a lot of those defenders have difficult fixtures in 24, and Mykolenko, you can just fill in for his double. Just, if it fills a gap, fine on Everton, but I wouldn't be taking out players that you want just to buy Everton for this double. That being said, it's just the Leicester fixture is all you're buying them for.
Yeah, agree. And
but it's 29 as well, surely. You think about.
Yeah, West Ham at home. Yeah.
United at home, they'd definitely get a clean sheet there, wouldn't they?
It's the early kickoff as well. It's 12:30. Yeah, I mean, I suppose if you add the blank in, but then it depends who you're taking out, right?
Yeah.
But if it's Raya to Pickford, it's fine. But then Arsenal do then have Leicester and West Ham after the double. So
just to apply it to my team, if you don't mind. But do you think I should be looking at Dunk to Mykolenko instead then? Because he's got City in 29.
Yes, because I don't particularly like Brighton's defence at the moment. So yes, I probably would.
Ahead of Raya to Pickford.
By the way, just want to shout out, I think it's probably Zoff at FPL. Love you boys.
So.
And If I need to confess, like right before we came on the pod, these two Chelsea fans were saying Son wouldn't fit into the Chelsea team. Are they crazy? Yes, they're crazy. So
I don't think we are.
let's discuss that later, Zoff. But
Is Son finished?
Tom
Yes
is
or no
out
in
of
the
his
chat?
mind. He's out of his mind thinking Son's not going to fit into that Chelsea team. Get the
Andy, did you say he would be cleaning Palmer's boots?
Yeah.
Or have I made that
Or did you
point?
not say that?
Palmer would be carrying his bag around for at least a few more years while he's at his peak at Chelsea.
Right,
He's just in the wrong team.
Let's go back to
Harry,
talking
just let
about...
Andy speak.
No.
I'm sure people want to hear it.
I'm only kidding, guys.
Right,
but-
let's go to Liverpool then. So I think we're in agreement that if we were on sort of free hit or not, like wild card, it would be Gakpo, Trent, and Salah. Do either of you disagree that that's where you'd go if you had the luxury of picking what you wanted?
No,
Say
especially
again?
after last night with
Gakpo, Trent, Salah is in theory the best Liverpool three. If you don't take into account team structure and how you get to them, etc., if it's just that, those are the best three.
at this moment in time, yeah. And
Bradley benched last night as well.
Yeah,
Sorry, Bradley played last night.
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well.
Yeah, just on Gakpo, you guys. But by the way, first of all, just to make it clear, I'm not saying Jackson's a bad footballer. I just think, I just need to make it clear.
I don't take it
see,
personally.
I see what you mean, Tom. Like he makes good runs. He's super active. Blah blah.
All
blah.
I'll say is there's a reason
just-
why Nkunku
a
has
shit
played 0
finisher,
minutes
you know?
in 2 games.
I think
What's
that's
that?
more Nkunku's problem than anything.
Yeah,
anyways.
I suppose. But Maresca obviously
Anyways,
is the same.
Anyways.
Just to wrap up the Jackson, I think he's a good player. I just think he's a terrible striker that's not finishing. So.
How can he be a
Okay,
good
I'll leave
player
it
and a
there.
terrible striker when his position is to be a striker?
The latter part is more important to what
Okay.
I
Andy,
just
you should
said,
have just
but,
bought him a
yeah.
few weeks earlier, then you'd have got points.
Anyways,
I wish I did.
anyways, yeah.
I sold these out for him. Anyway.
I'm just so mad at the amount of chances he's got in the last few game weeks and cannot find the back of the net. So calm down.
It's
There
true.
we go.
Anyway,
Anyways,
It's all right.
Liverpool.
Just sell him on stream and feel better.
yeah, buy Gakpo.
I'm gonna sell the shit out of him this week. So that's, I'll leave it
You're gonna
there.
have to put some beeps in the podcast.
Sorry, guys. Sorry. Okay. I'll stop with the cursing. But anyways, Gakpo, I think Gakpo is, for me right now, the third best pick if you can get there without having to do big surgery. I found it very interesting, right? Liverpool actually have attacked from the left zone 37 or 8% this year. So actually more than the Salah side, which is quite intriguing. And the point I'm trying to make is that all of Gakpo's goals, especially Premier League and a majority in the other leagues as well, have come from the left zone. So he either scores from inside the 6-yard box or he sort of scores on that left edge. You know how he cuts to the right like a Robin from the left and then, always finds
Yeah.
sort of the far post. That's what he's really good at. So there's just like 2 routes of goals he does, which is that cut and far post shot, or it's like he's making that run into that left side. And even if he scores inside the 6-yard box, he's scoring from the left side of it. So I think that's it should instill confidence for a lot of people like myself that are trying to bring him in and like Tom, because we know that Salah owns that right side. We know that Salah is the talisman on the right side. And yes, Luis Diaz had a great stretch early in the season on the left side, but the effective player is Gakpo from the left.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why Slot probably sees these things, know these numbers, and I think he's pretty, his minutes aren't like 180. It's going to be like maybe 130, 140, hopefully. But we just know that from the left, Gakpo is the most threatening in terms of conversion so far this season. My big worry is that he has maybe had a couple of braces, but not that many. It's always like 1 goal or maybe 1 goal plus 1 assist maximum. So I think we need to lower our expectations a little bit, but he definitely does own that left side in terms of how many conversions he's had this season for Liverpool.
I think what you're saying about the lack of hauls for him is important. They do have games actually outside of the double in Ipswich and Wolves that you could get a haul. I would say the fixtures in the double don't scream you get a haul from him, but it is the 3-game week stretch that I do like.
I
But
think
it's
sorry.
go on, Tom.
I was just going to say the whole thing. Like he's got 9 points 4 times, right?
Yeah, that's enough.
If he gets 1 more point, everyone's saying he's hauled 5 times.
Fair.
So And one thing I would say about that, he's got 3 bonus points off 1 goal 4 times because he's a forward.
Yeah.
So that I think that's a good point as well.
Yeah, you might be in a position like me then, where getting to Gakpo is quite difficult. I basically would have to sell Bruno to get to Gakpo, because another move that people are looking at is Chris Wood to Gakpo, which I do get with the fixtures, but it's also just not something I think I'm willing to do. I sold Chris Wood before, and my season basically stagnated while I sold Chris Wood, and it's got better again once I've bought Chris Wood. I don't think I'm going to do that move. So I would have to go João Pedro to Gakpo. So that's quite difficult for me to do unless I sell Bruno. So the other option is to double up on the defense. And actually, if we look at some of the team data that we've got here, Liverpool are one of the, actually over the past 6, the best defense in the league, right? So they've actually only 0.68 expected goals conceded per 90, is better than Arsenal and is better than everyone else. And they're one of the most improved teams over that period as well. So the defense definitely has its appeal. Trent is clear. I think Van Dijk is next, but having Trent and Van Dijk is an awful lot of money that most people can't get to. Konate's playing with painkillers every single game, which is a slight concern. And then you've got Alisson, of course, in goal. I think it's reasonable that none of us are touching the left-back spot because they play 60 minutes and change every second week. How do you feel on the double defense? Because it is by far the easiest thing for me to do.
With Konate, it's 1 game a week, though, isn't it? So it's not actually a problem. You wouldn't have thought.
No.
If I rest Champions League and rest FA Cup, and he'll start every game.
If I was doubling up on the defense itself, I would have Konate as one of them.
I agree. Yeah,
but he wouldn't be the first choice.
But my question for you guys is, can you fit a second Liverpool player into your team? Because it's Trent, Gabriel, you probably have a Munoz or like a Robinson, and then you have your 5th cheap defender. So this is your 4th slot, right?
Yeah. So I suppose the first question is A, would you sell Gabriel to them? And the second question is, if no, would you sell Raya to Alisson? And then you're back to the Alisson versus Pickford debate.
Right.
Because, of course, Alisson is predicted to blank in game week 29, whereas Pickford isn't. So it kind of depends if you've got Fabianski or not. And if you're willing to sell Gabriel. Because if you're not willing to sell Gabriel, the double up in actual defenders is quite difficult to do.
So
you could sell Robinson, Konate.
You could. The fixtures are not bad, though. They're okay.
Fulham.
Yeah.
I think Konate is accessible for most people at 5 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's replacing a already perfectly fine player in Robinson or, as Harry mentioned, Gabriel, you know?
Yeah, that's fair.
Robinson's an interesting one. Like, they've got Newcastle away in 24, but then Forest at home, Palace at home, Wolves away, Brighton away, and then currently Spurs in the blank. They're fine. They're not amazing. But could Robinson get returns in those? Yes. Is a Konate probably a better pick over that run? Probably slightly. But then you look at Gabriel and his fixtures are also quite nice. I don't mind it, but I prefer the Alisson route, I think, if I'm doubling up on the defense.
I think it's the Alisson move. I think the Alisson move makes more sense if you really want to invest in that double Liverpool defense for 24.
I think the first thing to say is if you're buying Alisson, you can't do it unless you've got Fabianski. Because otherwise you're buying a goalkeeper for the double and then having to sell them again for the blank if they do blank. And Alisson's not worth 2 transfers.
Yeah.
He's just not. So
what do you think, Andy? Are you instead of Jackson to Gakpo, are you considering a defense, a second defender?
No, I'm not, because I don't know who I would replace. I already have Pickford, who has a double, right?
Yeah, that's true.
I love Trent. I have Gabriel. I think Gabriel can do his like crazy run bullet header any game, and Arsenal clean sheet is always there. And dude, when Mateta scored, you know who was the highest up the pitch on the right that Mateta, if he was nice, would have assisted to?
Yeah,
it's Munoz.
Yeah,
Munoz was right there. Like he was.
He was
higher than freaking Sarr, Eze, and everybody else. So how the hell am I going to sell Munoz before this, remaining run that they have? I don't know where I would fit my second Liverpool defender.
I just want to add something. FPL Frost has said, just a reminder, we will know the landscape for blank Game Week 29 between Game Week 24 and Game Week 25. This is true, but also not actually guaranteed. So if you haven't already, I retweeted it yesterday. I would give the Planet FPL People's Poll podcast of Free Hit 29 versus Free Hit 34 a listen for general chip strategy stuff. They mention that we'll likely have a prediction of it, but if both the teams aren't in the FA Cup by the time Game Week 29 comes around, that fixture can stay in Game Week 29. So Liverpool and Aston Villa might be predicted to be a blank in 29, but if both teams get knocked out of the FA Cup, it can stay in Game Week 29 because between Game Week 29 and Game Week 30, there is an FA Cup weekend. So if they get to the final... Yeah, sorry.
Is that this round or is there another round?
So there's another round
Liverpool
between 27 and
right,
28.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's a round between 24, 25, and then another round before 28. And then I suppose that is when we'll know for certain. But the chances of, if Liverpool and Villa are predicted to blank in 29, chances of both of them getting knocked out the cup is pretty low, right? So we can pretty much, but it's not completely guaranteed. It's just something I would be worth adding. I think the one thing left to talk about, because I think we're there with Salah, Trent, Gakpo. If you can't get Gakpo, it's the defenders. Probably Alisson if you can over a second defender because it fits squad structure better. I suppose two final things is Luis Diaz. Is there any world where you'd buy Luis Diaz? And is there any world where you'd sell Luis Diaz to change it for another Liverpool option? I feel he's a keep if you've got... Sorry, go on.
Yeah. No, please. Well, I know what you're about to say. I think the question should be structured where it's like, do you think Luis Diaz will get as many minutes as Gakpo, or do you think he'll get more minutes than Gakpo? First of all, you have to answer that. If you think he's going to get similar minutes, then you would consider Luis Diaz. But it seems like Gakpo's going to get more minutes, right? Or is it just such a minuscule difference that it doesn't really matter?
I would expect Gakpo and Diaz to start pretty much every game and Darwin to come on for Diaz in probably 3 out of 4 games across the double and the one before, and maybe the fourth game he comes on for Gakpo. So maybe he gets 30, maybe gets 50 minutes more across the 4 games.
Interesting.
What did Diaz played last night, didn't he, and came off?
He did. Interestingly, he played on the wing. He played back where he played at the start of the season when he was so good. Now, I'm not saying that's where he's going to play, but this Liverpool system does not favour the 9 scoring FPL points.
Yeah.
We saw it at the start of the season when it was Diaz on the left that he was the one, and now it's Gakpo on the left, he's the one, and of course it's Salah on the right. If Gakpo's going to be on the left, he's the one to go to, but I don't think I'd sell Luis Diaz, particularly with the Jota injury, because he's just going to have to start. Like with Jota, you could say, well, he's not nailed. Like Jota could start one. Without Jota, like he's going to start.
Yeah, I don't think it's a sell because it's 2 transfers. Like you're getting rid of him, and then you're probably bringing in a forward spot for Gakpo. So
yeah,
maybe too many transfers used for just one double game week.
Cool. The final thing is chips. Chips. Have either of you played a triple captain?
No.
No, that will be Salah.
Okay,
doubt.
so is there any consideration? My plan is triple captain. Tom's, it sounds like yours is as well. Andy?
Yeah, obviously.
No love for the assistant manager?
No love for the assistant manager. I think I want to use it on more potential upside later down the year. So later down the season. So I'm kind of looking at that last 3 game weeks as where I want to play it.
I think I agree. And I actually think one of the reasons I plan on holding it is I'd quite like to play the assistant manager on a team I don't want 3 players from.
Yeah.
Because like let's say Slot scores 8 points in a game, the chances are I could pick an asset from Liverpool that scores the same, right? Like I could go Gakpo and he could score the same. So in that situation, it is the most powerful chip. But in that situation, I'm not really getting the maximum power out of it because I could get similar points by not playing the chip. I suppose I would have a different player in that position, but like generally for the double, it doesn't make that much difference. So I'd like to play it in a team. I think there's a really big opportunity, but I don't care about using up a slot for that team. No pun intended.
I mean, you also have to think about where else we would play it. And 29 blank, you need a chip there.
31 to 33
31,
or 36.
Right. And you're going to need your bench boost. You're going to need your free hit then somewhere. So
I just think if you I just think if you zoom out, if we had all the possible times to play it in front of us now, this would not be the best time to play it. That's just what I think.
Well,
and
that's
especially
fair, but...
And especially because there's, and like jokes aside on United and Spurs, and obviously it's fun to banter, but like there are decent teams in bad places right now. Yeah. And that seems exactly what this chip is made for.
I agree.
So I think with that in sort of, if the league table was more normal, like Forest, Bournemouth were 9th, 10th, you know, like Spurs, United were 5th and 6th. I think you could see it slightly more love for the slot pick, but like Spurs are going to win 3 games at some point. So it just, I think it's a huge upside later. And it's like triple captaining Salah is not that bad either. So that's
if you'd used your triple captain, then what? Because I think it's fair to say that the triple captain is better because the double's not great. So use the weakest chip, which is the triple captain.
I think that question's flawed because it doesn't matter. It's just that one doesn't affect the other is the point I'm trying to make.
I suppose the thing is, if you've got all your chips, we're running out. There's only a limited number of doubles. So you may as well play your triple captain here. But if you don't have the assistant manager, if you don't have a triple captain, you still got 2 doubles to play the 2 other chips. So
but in theory, you still have your other chips to play is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, you just got less chips to play. So there's less chance of there being a clash of 2 chips.
Sure.
I would still hold it.
Yeah. Would you also say that the fact, if the assistant managership, you could get it this week, maybe it's more of a conversation, but Slot would have City on the end.
You'd have to
sell it. So then you potentially transfer.
You'd have to move it, yeah. But the fixtures in 26 are not that great for it. Like, you'd probably go Arsenal at home to West Ham. Like, that's fine. But there's no, like, table bonus, really, that you can punt on unless you pick an away team, which is not something
Wolves at Bournemouth, yeah.
Like, are you picking Palace away at Fulham? Are you picking Wolves away at Bournemouth? Are you picking Leicester at home to Brentford? I don't feel like there's loads of upside on playing it in 24.
And it's a transfer as well. So, yeah, I just don't particularly think it's a great place to play it. And I think, yeah, you might look at you and think, well, I could get 15 slot points now. But I think I'd urge people to wait and you will get more towards the end of the season.
Yeah.
For me, I'm sure we're going to get real deep into this discussion soon. But for me, I think it's very imperative that if you're going to use the assistant manager chip, you should really try to look at the upside of 5 places ahead in the table. Like, that's my priority number 1. I want to have 3 fixtures where, like you said, Spurs is in some form 12th in the league and trying to play maybe a 5th or 6th, spot place, because those points are going to rack up in 3 game weeks, I feel.
Yeah.
And the worst case is, the worst case, Liverpool will probably have another double, or City. Like, you can use it on a boring manager.
Yeah.
If you get into the top 10k or whatever, you want to play it safe. These opportunities will still be here.
Yeah. One thing I would just add from Tanky in the chat is, in theory, there is slight predictions that if Spurs do beat Liverpool in the cup, that Spurs could double in 25. The issue with that is you won't know. Because if there's a double in 24 and then 25, then the assistant manager looks good, doesn't it? Because you could play it on slot in 24, move it to Ange, or move it to the Fulham manager in 25, and that looks great. The only issue with that is you won't know. Because when you activate the assistant manager in 24, that cup game has not been. So you won't know if they double in 25. It is possible that people who play it in 24 get lucky that the double does go into 25. So that is a bit of a boost that you could get back-to-back doubles. I just don't think you can play it on the premise of potentially Spurs winning and then the Premier League also throwing it in early. I don't think you can say, oh, I'm going to play it because there might be a double-double. But it is possible. And if you do play it, you could get lucky that it goes in.
It's interesting. It's very interesting. I mean, if we had known before you played that assistant managership that Spurs had double in 25, and let's say you're someone that already played the triple captaincy, that's a very sexy run of 5 fixtures, you know? Like,
if I knew Spurs doubled in 25, I'd play it over the triple captain.
Yeah, it's very nice.
This might be...
Go on, Tom.
Yeah. I was just going to say that, like, this might be controversial, but would you not rather play it on David Moyes if you had to play it on anyone this week?
Yeah.
Because I would. Like, that's... You can... Not easily, but if there's going to be a shock this season, like, them getting a draw to Liverpool at home, beat Leicester, get a draw, and then they're away at Palace, is there a scenario where they could have table bonus at Palace if Palace win a few games?
Well, not if they've beaten Leicester and drawn to Liverpool.
No. Man United, though, could that work?
No, but you could then move it in 25. There are actually some quite good opportunities in 25. I mean,
I think I'd just go Moyes if you have to, if you want to. I think that's just better. Like
in 25, you could put it on Fulham at home to Forest.
Yeah,
table bonus. But
shout out Tanky bringing the facts today. Draw. By the way, draw bonus for Everton is more valuable than a win for Slot.
It is, unless Slot wins like 2-0 and then he gets the goals and the clean sheet. But yes,
but if you frame it like that, like you're saying, well, I can get Moyes for no extra transfer, and then I can buy Gakpo as well.
Yeah,
surely that's better than Slot and just 2 Liverpool players.
I would probably say that Moyes and Gakpo is better than Slot and Calvert-Lewin.
Yeah,
if you frame it like that.
Yeah, I think you don't discount Moyes. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. And then that table bonus, Fulham at home to Forest in 25. If I went Moyes, like that's straight where I'd go.
Yeah.
Fulham at home to Forest, hope they draw, if not win. And then maybe even move it again. If not, who do Fulham have in?
Palace at home. Still a decent chance of points.
Yeah, in 26. So, yeah. I would consider if you're playing it to play it on Moyes. That's a good point. Right. That is all for that. Let's put it into a bit of context. Let's do our teams. I'm going to put Tom, yours up first because you've already made a transfer this week. For people on podcast, Tom has Raya, Van Dijk, Munoz, Gabriel, Salah captain at the moment, Palmer, Gordon, Rodgers, Wood, Gakpo, Isak vice captain. Gakpo has come in for Jackson, Ahmad, Castagna, Dunk, and Valdemarson on the bench.
Yeah. Pretty straightforward, really. Gakpo in for Jackson. Captain Salah. A few maybe benchings like Ahmad against Rodgers or Wood. Kind of loath to bench Wood, but
yeah,
I don't know. Probably not.
I'd leave Ahmad on the bench if it was me.
Yeah, and then yeah, that's probably right. I'm not going to bench Gabriel or anything. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward. And then next week I'm looking at. Well, I was looking at Raya to Pickford, but during this podcast I have thought about Dunk to Mykolenko. Making more sense. But yeah, it's pretty easy, straightforward, I think. And the current plan is to not free hit in 29.
Yeah.
As it stands, I would have after 25. I would have after 24 double. If I get Pickford, I would have 7 players, including Dunk, so 6 basically, with 4 transfers to get to 10. So yeah, probably someone like Phil Foden's going to come into thinking soon.
Cool. Andy?
Nice.
Your team is up. You've got Pickford in goal already for the double. Trent, Munoz, Gabriel, Gordon, Sarr, Salah captain, Palmer, João Pedro, Jackson, Isak, and Rodgers on the bench at the moment.
Yeah. By the way, guys, thank you for joining us today. Please subscribe to the channel and let's get some likes up, guys. Please hit the like button as well. I want to apologize for my language earlier and also apologize to Chelsea fans for my Jackson banter. I think Jackson's great. Go Jackson. Go Chelsea. Now moving on, I'm ready to sell Jackson. He can get the hell out of my team. And so I'm thinking Jackson to Gakpo.
Yeah.
Captaincy and Salah. I watched that Champions League highlights and, you you cannot not captain Salah against Ipswich. So
is there any
there's
love
that.
for Isak?
There's love for Isak. I'm definitely going to leave it to the last minute for me because I need to chase and
Yeah.
I have nothing to lose anymore, Harry. So that's the only reason why. If I was in the position that I'm usually in, which is not as high as you, but maybe where Tom is, I don't think I would take that chance and captain Salah. So it's more just a sort of very gameplay type of thing, game state type of thing for me, or FPL type of thing for me. Big question for you guys is, do I start Sar or do I start Rogers?
Sar.
I'd probably say Sar. The only thing with it is
too.
Villa losing last night means they basically have to win in the Champions League next week. Now, they do have Celtic, but I don't know whether that would play into my thinking. I'd probably play Sar.
Yeah, I think so. So I'm leaning on Sar. It was just the minutes that I was a little worried about, but I think it should be fine.
Yeah, I think it'll be fine. I think it was just the turnaround of the hamstring more than anything for him.
So once again, hit the like button. Also, I love you, Chelsea fans, as well as Jackson.
Right, my team is up. I've got Raya in goal, Munoz, Gabriel, Trent, Palmer, Bruno, Salah, Gordon, Wood, Isak, João Pedro, and Ahmad on the bench. As, of course, every week, I've got Bruno versus Ahmad as a decision I have to make. At the moment, I'm Bruno, and it'll probably stay there because he's on pens and stuff like that, as we saw at the weekend, but I'm just going to bench Ahmad points is the issue with this team at the moment. Transfers, I think I'm going to roll because I'm not certain on which Liverpool player I want. Now, I know I missed the Ipswich game, and that's a bit of a pain. I've got two options, basically. Option one is I do Raya to Alisson, and I take Alisson as my third Liverpool. Or I do João Pedro to Gakpo and Bruno Fernandes to Kluivert. Now, I understand that Kluivert has just scored 22 points, so that looks incredibly reactionary, and it does, and it is slightly. But from Gameweek 25, they do have a really nice run. And when I future plan my team, I'm always slightly short of money, and Bruno's just the way to get it.
There's a couple of things about Kluivert, by the way. He's defying his XG, first of all, and half of his FPL points came from 2 games. And that first game was a hat trick of penalties, which is the first time in Premier League history, by the way. So it's just a rare occasion in my mind. Tavernier, Sinister are on their way back, apparently. So maybe there's some minutes risk there, Harry.
Yeah.
You know, these hauls are not sustainable, first of all. So I tread with caution. And as great as Bournemouth look right now, and Evan Nilsson's also out for the season, so maybe he'll play a little bit higher up the pitch. You have to manage expectations with Kluivert.
I completely get that. Corner. But I suppose the point is Bruno worth 8.5 million? And there's lots of transfers I look at over the next couple of weeks, and I'm just slightly short of the money for it. And Bruno just seems the obvious way to get it.
He's a good cash cow downgrade. Agree.
But that's the issue. He'll always be the cash cow downgrade for me. And whenever I need money for something, it will always be Bruno. It will always be Bruno that I look at in this team. And it means I'm just constantly benching Ahmad. Like every week. Well, I've got 2 Man United midfielders. I've got a benching headache. I'll just bench one of them, which I don't love. At the moment, I'll roll. And Raya to Alisson is the most likely.
Yeah, it's an easy roll for me.
Yeah, I think that's the plan.
Can you afford Wood to Gakpo?
Yeah.
You could do that.
Yeah, I can. It is tempting.
Yeah.
But I also just don't want to sell Wood.
Harry, you should do that move.
Why?
You're in a position of luxury, dude. Gakpo, the Wood.
I'd consider that, you know.
Yeah, Wood's not going to hurt you that bad.
Is he? He's just this guy just hauls out of nowhere. He gets one shot and he gets 9 points every week.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is one I think you could take it on.
I've only just bought him.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
So have I, but and it's for free. Like you can just do that, and then maybe you can keep Bruno to 29.
I could keep both of them. If I buy Alisson, I can keep both of them till 29.
Wow, he's 82% EO.
Yeah, I'm not selling that. I'm really sorry, but
Gakpo. But what's Gakpo?
Harry hates high EO sales. I completely agree. I'm not selling I'm not selling an 82%.
Someone's saying sabotage.
EO
We're not trying to sabotage.
I'm not selling an 82% EO Chris Wood. If everyone decides to sell him, then maybe I will. But while he's 82% EO, he's going absolutely nowhere.
No, I mean, genuinely, I'm not trying to sabotage you. I don't think it's a bad move.
Harry, this guy had 0 XG against Spurs.
Who?
Chris Wood.
Yeah, but
terrible.
He only needs 0.3 XG against Everton, and he came away with 12 points.
Yeah, well, to be fair, when he's getting good assists like he did at the weekend, you can't sell him.
Yeah, exactly.
He's got creativity now as well, hasn't he?
Like, he's just not going anywhere. Like, I'm just not doing it. I'm not doing it. I can keep him. He's got Gameweek 27. He's got Arsenal at home. Fine, I'll bench him because Ahmad's got Ipswich at home that week. Fine. I just don't think I'm going to sell Chris Wood. I just don't think it's going to happen. I did it once and I didn't enjoy it, and I'm not doing it again. I could sell Gabriel, but yeah, I think I'll roll, and then I'll have a look after this game about how we get on. I do appreciate that all the transfer options I have are better for my team this week than if I don't do them. Like, Alisson is better than Raya, right? Gakpo in is probably better than Pedro in this week, right? But it's just I don't know what I want to do. And I know I'm missing Ipswich at home. That's what pains me, but I just don't think I can make a transfer. I think it's a roll.
Yeah, it seems a shame, though, to miss out on Gakpo this week.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. It does.
What do we know, Tom? What do we know?
Yeah,
we're 2.5, 700K.
There is that.
We should, we're not even.
The only thing
Actually, don't buy Gakpo. We might be able to catch you up a little bit.
The only thing I'd say on Ipswich is everyone's like, oh, City tore them apart. They did change like 3 of their back 5 for that game. Like, they did make changes because of how many games they've had. And before that, they weren't as bad defensively. So,
what was have they not just brought in Godfrey? Is he there?
Well, I don't know. It was his first game in. Also, Jacob Greaves didn't play, and that was a big downfall.
Godfrey? I don't know.
I think he played on the right centre back. They played Burgess over Greaves. They did just change quite a lot, which may be why City beat them 6-0. But yeah,
no Calvin Phillips as well, probably.
Yeah. If I had an obvious route to Gakpo, then that isn't Chris Wood. Like, if I could, I was just short of doing Pedro to Gakpo, Bruno to Mbermo, and Raya to Pickford. I was like 0.2 short of it, and that was very sad. So, anyway. Yeah. I'm going to roll. And I think that is all. We have been live for over an hour now, so we will wrap up now. There'll, of course, be all the usual bits on the Scout channel, and if you haven't liked already and subscribed already, please make sure you do so. When we're back next week, it will be proper double game week 24, our first double of the season, but it feels like we're already there. We're into the crunch part of the season. Thank you both very much. Andy, thank you for joining.
It was lovely. I really enjoyed it today, and shout out Tom.
Tom, thank you.
Yeah, it was good. Always good to see Andy. And I think next week we'll all be... My prediction is more people than currently saying they will all buy Calvert-Lewin. So
yeah, because I'm going to do Raya to Alisson, and it's going to leave me perfectly Pedro to Dominic Calvert-Lewin.
There you go. Stay tuned. Scoutcast is tomorrow night, by the way.
Perfect.
Our regular viewers.
Nice.
So enjoy
Thanks
that.
all, and we'll see you all next week.